Happy Friday, everyone. This is an update on Bitcoin Cash. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this. I put out a community post, I think 2 days ago, giving us a chart to detail what the lower low might look like. We had a setup to go a bit lower, but if you do watch my channel, I frequently visit the Bitcoin Cash chart as it has been acting as a proxy for the rest of the altcoins for me, simply because it has very nice structures and internal shapes, things like that. So this is the 5-minute chart. And so far, we are kind of averting any further downside action. So we're going to revisit this. I'm going to go over the anatomy of the crash so far just to get us caught up on what has transpired over the past couple of weeks. But we had a nice 1-2 setup to the downside. And when I say nice, it was very textbook looking. We had a clean impulsive wave down, first wave after we broke our upside leading diagonal setup. And then we actually had a good retrace, about 61.8%, actually exactly 61.8% retrace for our wave 2. And then we start to flush down. I did mention Chainlink was one of the earlier coins to break support, as did Polygon. And sure enough, all the dominoes eventually fell. And Bitcoin Cash actually hit its targets almost perfectly. Based on that 1-2 we have up top, you would expect your third wave to hit the 1.32 to 1.61 extensions. That's exactly what we saw. We had our third wave hit right in between that zone. We had a nice fourth wave bounce that was pretty short-lived. And then we finally finished just past the 2.0 extension. Again, more or less right where we'd expect a fifth wave extension to take us. So once that was done, we start seeing some relatively bullish developments. If you ask me, we can count 5 waves up. While Bitcoin Cash has a somewhat dependable looking 5 up, we don't see the same situation in a lot of the other coins, but we'll take what we can get. I know I was looking at Stellar Lumens. I did an update on this the other day. I'd say even more so than Bitcoin Cash, this has an even cleaner looking 5 up, with the only problem being that that fourth wave went a little low, a little bit lower than I expect. But to be honest, it looks a bit cleaner than even Bitcoin Cash, but that was and still does continue to be our primary pattern. We had a bit of a scare yesterday. So since that top up there, once we hit our ideal target, we could have seen a second wave pullback, and we may still be in it. Otherwise, you could count this as a 5 wave impulse down. This could be a invisible 1-2 third wave, sideways fourth wave, and a fifth wave, very proportionally correct. Second wave bounce, 50% retrace, again textbook standard. And it looked like we're about to break down. We actually broke through our pivot zone, which would be the 0.618 to 0.764 extensions. And I put this warning out there: breaking below this would be a very strong sign that we're off to the race to the bottom. And the final support would have been the 76.4% retrace of the whole rally. That sits at about 170. We didn't quite make it there. We bounced pretty nicely, but nothing particularly impressive yet. Now, if you look more closely, this could be counted as a 5-wave pattern up. So you got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe an ABC down. If that's the case, we should have taken off a bit more vigorously. We didn't quite do that. Maybe it's a nested 1, 2. Right now, it's a bit early to tell what's going to happen. Now, if you're looking to buy the dip, I did mention I did buy the dip more or less. I bought some of my coins before the final bottom. I know Bitcoin Cash I entered before we hit the bottom. And then most of my other coins I bought after the top the next morning, because our bottom happened at I think 2:30 in the morning on May 12th, my local time. So it's very hard to perfectly catch a bottom. And if you missed it, you're not missing too much, because again, we do have a setup here to potentially go lower. And when we look at the overall upside potential, there's going to be plenty more setups along the way. We're going to have bigger 5-wave impulses. I'll go over that briefly, but that is why I haven't really been screaming to buy if you'd like. Otherwise, a good time to start your dollar cost average if you stop that, if you discontinued that. Otherwise, we'll move on to the big picture chart. So I changed some things up. Again, you may have seen this already in my other updates, but we are still maintaining a nice MACD divergence, as you see down here, where this thing slopes up while our prices have continued to decline up until recently. So has one of the cleanest divergences of any of the coins at the moment. And when we look at our structure, we have this pink box below. We went solidly into it. So that was a convincing bottom, in my opinion. Upper half of the box is where we ended. And when we look at this A wave and the B wave, and we build this Fibonacci extension off of it, our 1.0 does fall about 185. Our official bottom was about 150, 152, something like that. I think I wrote 150 here. So our red primary pattern says that that really was the bottom. We're done, and that we should see some bullish action relatively soon. That's the red pattern. It corresponds to the blue on the shorter time scale chart. So apologies for the confusion. The other alternative is orange, which is basically the same exact structure, but a little bit lower. So you see the C wave down here, potentially taking us down to the next fib extension down. So 130 or 105 could go as low as 74.70. I think someone had a comment about why am I not using 74.70 as my support? Because that was clearly the major low from March 2020. Well, this box has been drawn like this for quite a while now. So that is the support. We could see us go down there. Cannot break that. I don't expect to, although we have some coins that are getting precarious. They're in a precarious position. EOS, as some of you may have known, did actually break its support. So maybe opening the door for lower lows ahead. Dash has gotten very close, but right now Bitcoin Cash has plenty of cushion below. And the two coins I mentioned, the only ones that got close to that situation. So again, our orange is corresponds to this red pattern here, which says that this whole thing is a fake out rally, ABC. And well, we have follow through. That's what the orange arrow is, and mentioned that's how low we could go. How low would we go based on the linear chart? It's looking like maybe a slightly lower low, 143 to 134. That would be a likely bottom if we do follow through on the lower low. But like I said, the log chart does extend a little bit differently from what we see here. So we'll see what we do. But if that's the case, we may not break that 1.236 extension. Whatever happens, I expect another very powerful spike down and a very quick rebound. And we won't know that we've bottomed until we have our 5-wave rally off of that bottom. So that's what we always look for. I don't know why that is out of scale, but we typically look for something that looks like this: a 1, 2, nice third wave, fourth wave sideways, and a fifth wave up. And once we have that, we look for a 3-wave zigzag correction. So an ABC like so. Once we have that, that is usually a very bullish sign that the bottom is behind us. Once we ride to the top of that, that's generally a confirmation of a bottom. So that is what I'd be looking for before I start sounding off the buy alarms. But until we see a bit more confirmation, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. If you are a little bit more risk averse, if you think you're going to need that cash for something else, I've been reiterating, may not hurt to take some of your cash off the table or some of your coins off the table if you need that cash. In my case, I did take some holdings off for other coins. I haven't sold in my Bitcoin Cash, but I do have it hedged with some BITO ETF puts, BITO. I have some videos that highlighted that. I didn't put any videos out for the latest setup because I don't think it's as clean of a setup to short as we had before, but for me, it's just pure insurance. So you do you. Best way to reduce risk is taking some off the table, not all of it. But do also remember that we're much closer to a bottom than we are to a top. And there's nothing suggesting yet that we might see a lower lows or any action like that. As for how likely it is we get that lower low, we've been closely correlating the stock market for quite some time. So I keep referring back to this. This is the ES mini futures, which represents the S&P 500. And we got our lower low today. So we had hit our low on May 12th, just like with cryptos. And the fact that we had an impulsive setup, you see the blue 5-wave setup, aqua color, whatever that is, and we broke the crap out of that setup, gives this red possibility much more credibility in the cryptos. And the other thing is the futures market and the stock market, they have limited trading hours. The stock market only trades on weekdays during the day, and the futures, they have a nice big gap over the weekend. So oftentimes you see the stock market run ahead of cryptos, or you'll see these things catch up after the weekend. In this case, we might actually see both. So we went ahead and saw a lower low, and we saw one heck of a bounce, probably a short squeeze. That's what my personal opinion is. We're not out of the woods yet. I do think it might go lower, but if the market gives us a 5 with impulse, I'm going to have to change my mind on that. But that's my expectation. We could actually see cryptos catch up to the downside over the weekend. We saw something like that again last week, on which our stock market bottom, I believe, was during the day on the 12th, and the cryptos bottomed overnight. Either that or was the other way around. I can't remember. Actually, I have it up. Might as well look it up real quick. The time that we bottomed was about 2:00 p.m. on the 12th. So cryptos actually bottomed ahead of the stock market, it seems like, because that happened overnight. So don't be surprised if we see some downward action to catch up over the weekend. But best thing to do is to not panic, watch for this thing. And more than likely, if we are falling through on completing an impulse, I expect to see a third wave down. Again, probably somewhere around 150, 140 range. Should see a fourth wave consolidation. and a final fifth wave spike lower. If we are going to have some more bearish action, I don't have another alternate on this chart at the moment. It would take a lot of downside stretch to break anything. So we'll definitely have more of a warning. And if we are to see anything like that, if this whole thing is an impulse, we should see a pretty significant bounce before we have any more downside action. And just to give you guys an idea of what that could look like, absolute worst case scenario, I'm going to look at Dash right here. Again, we got very close support. That would mean potentially that this entire correction off of our December 2017 high is actually still going. A B wave top, that May 2021 top, and we may be in a C wave that has a bit further to go. For Dash, that would be a long way down. Bitcoin Cash, like I said, we're not as close to that support, but very similar stance, December to December 2018. So all of 2018 basically would be the A wave, B wave bounce, and we'd have a C wave flush. I'm actually going to do the math here just out of curiosity to see what that could look like, because, well, it could be a little scary. So that could take us down to $31. That would be the 1-to-1 ratio or the 1.0 extension of this A wave extended from the B wave for the C wave. So again, it's a low likelihood right now. We are not breaking any supports yet, but there's a chance. However, if it happens, we're probably going to see some significant downside action. I'm pretty sure we'd see Dash and other coins break support, and then we'd have a pretty good bounce before we follow through on that. So that is where we are. I'm going to have plenty more updates coming your way. Subscribe so that you don't miss them. Until next time, thank you for watching and happy trading.